It began with a property dispute, one that palace insiders reportedly tried to keep far from public view. According to whispers circulating through royal circles, discussions surrounding Royal Lodge unexpectedly escalated into one of the most sensitive internal debates of recent years. What initially appeared to involve future residency arrangements soon evolved into questions of inheritance, authority, and royal entitlement. As legal advisors quietly reviewed historic agreements and long-standing protocols, reports suggest an unexpected obstacle emerged. And at the center of the controversy stood Queen Camilla, facing resistance from a group few expected to intervene so decisively. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. At first, the matter seemed little more than another internal property discussion, the sort of administrative issue that rarely attracts public attention. Yet according to palace whispers, Royal Lodge was never just another residence. Those familiar with royal history have long viewed the estate as one of the monarchy's most significant properties, carrying decades of tradition, memory, and symbolic importance. For that reason alone, any discussion concerning its future was destined to attract scrutiny among those responsible for safeguarding royal interests. What appeared routine on the surface reportedly concealed far deeper concerns beneath it. Reports began circulating that questions had emerged regarding long-term residency rights connected to the estate. While details remained unclear, palace insiders allegedly described a growing sense of unease among advisors reviewing the matter. The discussion reportedly focused not only on occupancy arrangements, but also on the broader implications attached to future control of such an important royal asset. What would happen if new expectations were established? Could decisions made today shape future claims tomorrow? These questions reportedly became increasingly difficult to ignore. As the issue moved through official channels, royal lawyers allegedly became involved. According to those familiar with the situation, legal teams began reviewing existing agreements, historical arrangements, and precedents connected to royal residences. Their task reportedly extended beyond determining what might be possible under existing rules. They were also evaluating what would best serve the institution in the years ahead. The deeper they examined the issue, the more complicated it appeared to become. Concerns reportedly centered on authority, stewardship, and the responsibility of protecting royal assets for future generations. Palace officials allegedly viewed Royal Lodge not merely as a private residence, but as part of a much larger network of historic properties connected to the Crown's identity and continuity. Decisions involving such estates, therefore, carried significance beyond personal preference. They touched upon principles of governance, tradition, and institutional preservation. For some advisors, that distinction reportedly became a critical factor in the debate. Behind closed doors, senior aides are said to have joined the discussion. Different perspectives reportedly emerged regarding the best path forward. Some viewed the matter through the lens of practicality and personal circumstance. Others allegedly focused on long-term implications and the importance of avoiding decisions that might create unintended precedents. As more voices entered the conversation, the atmosphere reportedly became increasingly tense. What began as a property matter was gradually transforming into a larger struggle over competing visions of royal stewardship. Outside palace walls, observers sensed that something unusual was unfolding. Rumors spread. Speculation intensified. The lack of public information only encouraged further curiosity. Royal commentators began asking questions about competing interests, future priorities, and the significance of legal involvement. Why had lawyers become so deeply engaged? Why was a residency discussion attracting such extraordinary attention? The answers remained elusive, but the mystery itself continued growing. By this stage, many insiders reportedly believed the controversy had already moved beyond its original purpose. The estate remained at the center of the discussion, but larger questions were beginning to dominate the narrative. Questions about responsibility. Questions about legacy. Questions about who ultimately determines the future of assets tied so closely to the monarchy's history. But the dispute was never truly about a residence, it was about who controls the future of one of the monarchy's most significant royal assets. Royal properties are rarely viewed as ordinary homes. They are symbols of continuity, responsibility, and royal legacy. Royal Lodge, in particular, occupies a unique position within the Crown's historic landscape, carrying decades of royal memory and institutional significance. To understand why discussions surrounding Royal Lodge reportedly generated such intense concern, it is necessary to understand what the estate represents. For many people, a residence is simply a place to live. Within royal life, however, properties often become symbols that outlast the generations who occupy them. They preserve memories, embody tradition, and serve as physical reminders of the monarchy's long and complicated history. According to royal observers, Royal Lodge belongs firmly within that category. Its significance extends far beyond bricks, land, or architecture. Instead, it occupies a unique place within the broader story of the Crown itself. Over the years, the estate has become associated with multiple chapters of royal history. Different generations have left their mark on the property, transforming it into something larger than any single resident. Palace historians often describe such estates as living links between past and present. They connect today's royal household with the traditions, responsibilities, and decisions of those who came before. This is precisely why discussions regarding future occupancy reportedly attracted such close attention behind palace walls. The issue was never limited to who might reside there next. It involved questions about continuity and the stewardship of a treasured royal asset. That symbolic importance helps explain why royal residences frequently become subjects of public fascination. Across generations, people have been captivated by the homes associated with the monarchy. These properties provide a tangible connection to an institution, often defined by ceremony and tradition. They allow the public to see history not as an abstract concept, but as something preserved within real places. Royal Lodge, according to commentators, holds a particularly powerful position because of the memories and associations attached to it. Every conversation involving its future inevitably becomes a conversation about the monarchy's future as well. Inside the palace, traditions regarding stewardship have reportedly played a major role in shaping attitudes toward royal properties. Historic estates are often viewed not as personal possessions, but as assets connected to the institution itself. Their management requires balancing present-day needs with long-term responsibilities. Decisions that may seem practical in the moment are frequently evaluated through the lens of future consequences. Palace insiders allegedly approached the Royal Lodge discussions with precisely that mindset, examining not only immediate arrangements, but also the precedents those arrangements could establish. As reports of the debate spread, questions concerning occupancy and succession reportedly began attracting increasing attention. Who should have access to historically significant residences? What factors should determine future arrangements? How should royal assets be protected while remaining functional within a changing institution? These were difficult questions, and according to those familiar with palace operations, they became central to the broader discussion. The more the issue was examined, the more complicated it appeared. Observers also began looking at Royal Lodge within the context of the monarchy's wider portfolio of estates and properties. Every residence serves a different purpose. Some function as official working locations, others provide private retreats. A few occupy a symbolic middle ground, carrying significance that extends beyond practical use. Royal Lodge reportedly falls into that category, making any decision regarding its future particularly sensitive. What happens there can influence perceptions of governance, stewardship, and institutional priorities. As public interest continued to grow, so did curiosity about how such properties are managed behind the scenes. The estate became more than a residence in the eyes of many observers. It became a symbol of continuity, responsibility, and royal legacy. And as that symbolism became impossible to ignore, concerns about its future began drawing even greater scrutiny from those determined to protect the monarchy's long-term interests. As the importance of Royal Lodge became clearer, concerns about its future began attracting increasing attention. According to palace whispers, the discussion began quietly. No public disagreement, no dramatic confrontation, just a proposal that gradually moved through official channels before reaching those tasked with protecting royal interests. At first, reports suggest the idea attracted little controversy. Supporters allegedly viewed the proposal as entirely reasonable, arguing that long-term residency considerations were a natural subject for discussion within any royal household. From their perspective, the matter reflected practical planning rather than institutional conflict. Royal families, after all, must constantly navigate questions involving residences, responsibilities, and future arrangements. Yet beneath that seemingly straightforward logic, a far more complicated conversation was already beginning to take shape. As the proposal moved through palace channels, officials reportedly began reviewing its broader implications. What initially appeared to concern a single residency arrangement quickly expanded into a discussion involving precedent, governance, and the management of royal assets. According to palace insiders, advisors were less focused on immediate circumstances and more concerned with what future expectations such a decision might create. The issue was no longer confined to the present. It was becoming a question about the long-term stewardship of one of the monarchy's most significant properties. That shift reportedly prompted legal advisors to become increasingly involved. Historical agreements, property arrangements, and long-standing precedents allegedly came under renewed examination as lawyers sought to determine not only what might be legally permissible, but also what would best serve the institution moving forward. Royal history is filled with examples of decisions whose consequences were not fully understood until years later. Because of that reality, legal teams reportedly approached the matter with exceptional caution. Every clause, every precedent, and every historical comparison was said to receive careful attention. Meanwhile, senior aides allegedly found themselves debating the possible consequences behind closed doors. Some reportedly believed flexibility was necessary in a modern monarchy, adapting to changing circumstances. Others argued that institutional consistency remained essential for preserving public confidence and internal stability. According to those familiar with the discussions, the disagreement was not driven by personal feelings, but by fundamentally different views regarding how royal assets should be governed. As these competing perspectives emerged, the atmosphere reportedly became increasingly tense. Questions surrounding authority soon moved to the center of the debate. Who ultimately decides the future of a property so closely tied to royal history? Should immediate needs take precedence over long-established traditions? How should the monarchy balance compassion, practicality, and institutional responsibility when those priorities appear to conflict? These questions reportedly became difficult to answer, precisely because they touched upon the core responsibilities of royal stewardship. As the conversation deepened, concerns about long-term management intensified. Palace insiders allegedly warned that decisions involving major royal properties could establish expectations lasting far beyond the current generation. What seemed sensible today might create challenges tomorrow. For that reason, discussions reportedly expanded beyond personal circumstances and into broader considerations involving continuity, governance, and the protection of royal assets for future heirs. The property itself had become symbolic of something much larger. Outside palace walls, observers sensed that unusual forces were gathering around what should have been a routine administrative matter. Rumors spread. Speculation grew. The involvement of lawyers, advisors, and senior officials suggested that the stakes were considerably higher than initially believed. With each passing day, the mystery deepened. Why had such a straightforward proposal triggered so much scrutiny? What concerns were powerful enough to attract attention from some of the monarchy's most experienced advisors? By this stage, many insiders reportedly recognized that the discussion had already evolved beyond its original purpose. The residency question remained at the center of the debate, but larger themes were beginning to dominate the conversation. Themes of responsibility, themes of authority. themes of legacy, and as those themes grew more prominent, the future of Royal Lodge became increasingly intertwined with questions about the future of the monarchy itself. What seemed like a straightforward housing arrangement was rapidly becoming a test of royal governance itself. Few forces carry more influence within royal institutions than legal authority. While public attention often focuses on ceremonies and appearances, some of the monarchy's most important battles are fought through documents, agreements, and carefully worded decisions. As discussions surrounding Royal Lodge continued to unfold, reports suggest the focus increasingly shifted toward legal review. What had begun as a conversation about future residency arrangements was now entering a far more serious phase. According to palace insiders, royal lawyers were asked to examine existing agreements, historical precedents, and the legal framework governing occupancy of significant royal properties. Their involvement immediately changed the tone of the debate. Once legal experts entered the discussion, the issue could no longer be viewed simply as a matter of preference or personal circumstance. It had become a question of authority, responsibility, and institutional protection. Royal observers have often noted that some of the monarchy's most consequential decisions are made not in public ceremonies, but in private consultations involving advisors, legal experts, and senior officials. According to reports, this situation followed a similar pattern. Lawyers allegedly began reviewing past arrangements connected to royal residences, searching for guidance in decisions made by previous generations. The goal was not only to determine what might be permitted, but also to understand what consequences could emerge from any new precedent. Every historical comparison reportedly carried significance, because even the smallest decision could shape expectations far into the future. Questions soon emerged regarding legal standing and long-term authority. Palace insiders allegedly described the review as unusually thorough, suggesting that advisors were determined to examine every possible implication before moving forward. The discussion reportedly extended beyond the immediate proposal and into broader considerations about how major royal assets should be managed. Could one decision unintentionally limit future flexibility? Could today's arrangement create challenges for future monarchs? These concerns reportedly became central to the legal analysis. At the same time, officials are said to have remained focused on institutional interests rather than individual preferences. According to those familiar with royal operations, this distinction became increasingly important as the review progressed. Royal properties of significant historical importance are often viewed through the lens of stewardship rather than ownership. They are considered assets connected to the institution itself, preserved not merely for current occupants but for future generations. That philosophy reportedly guided much of the legal discussion surrounding Royal Lodge. Concerns about maintaining long-term flexibility allegedly became one of the strongest arguments raised during the review. Advisors reportedly feared that decisions made under present circumstances could restrict future options or create expectations that would be difficult to reverse. In an institution built upon continuity and precedent, such concerns carry considerable weight. Palace officials are said to have approached the matter with extreme caution, aware that even seemingly minor changes can produce consequences lasting decades. As the legal examination intensified, senior figures reportedly began reassessing earlier assumptions. Some who initially viewed the proposal as straightforward allegedly started recognizing the broader institutional issues involved. The debate gradually shifted away from individual circumstances and toward larger questions concerning governance, stewardship, and responsibility. Legal considerations increasingly overshadowed personal preferences, altering the direction of discussions in ways few had anticipated when the matter first emerged. Outside palace walls, speculation continued to grow. Observers wondered why a residency issue had attracted such extensive legal attention. The answer, according to royal commentators, may have been simple. The property itself was never the only concern. Royal Lodge represented history, continuity, and the future management of a significant royal asset. Protecting those interests required more than emotion or tradition. It required careful legal scrutiny. By this stage, the review had reportedly transformed the entire conversation. What began as a question about occupancy had evolved into a debate about stewardship, authority, and the responsibilities attached to preserving royal legacy for generations yet to come. As legal scrutiny intensified, the debate shifted from residency to questions of stewardship and responsibility. The deeper the debate progressed, the clearer one reality became. The argument was never solely about Royal Lodge. It was about legacy, about who safeguards royal assets, about how the monarchy balances personal wishes against institutional obligations. As reports continued to circulate through royal circles, the discussion reportedly expanded far beyond residency rights and property arrangements. What had begun as a question about Royal Lodge gradually evolved into a broader examination of leadership, stewardship, and the future direction of the monarchy itself. Competing views allegedly emerged regarding future priorities. Some believed flexibility and personal considerations deserved greater weight, while others argued that institutional continuity must always remain the guiding principle. The deeper the debate progressed, the more obvious it became that Royal Lodge had become a symbol for a much larger struggle taking place beneath the surface. Palace officials reportedly monitored developments closely as the issue gained momentum. Legal intervention, once viewed as a procedural step, increasingly came to symbolize something more significant. According to royal commentators, the involvement of lawyers transformed the conversation from one about personal arrangements into one focused on governance and responsibility. Questions of precedent suddenly became central. If decisions regarding a property of such importance were made without careful consideration, what expectations might they create for future generations? The discussion was no longer about today. It was about protecting tomorrow. Public fascination intensified as rumors spread. Observers speculated about competing interests, shifting influence, and the delicate balance between tradition and modernization. Royal commentators later described the controversy as highly symbolic because it reflected challenges facing the institution itself. Royal Lodge became more than a residence. It became a representation of continuity, stewardship, and the difficult choices required to preserve a centuries-old monarchy in a changing world. History often remembers the disputes that reveal deeper truths about institutions. According to royal observers, this controversy endured because it reflected the monarchy's ongoing struggle to balance personal relationships with the demands of stewardship. Reports suggest significant resistance ultimately emerged, with legal advisors becoming symbols of institutional protection rather than mere technical experts. Their involvement reinforced the idea that major royal assets are not simply properties to be occupied, but responsibilities to be managed carefully for future generations. In the end, Royal Lodge came to represent continuity rather than residence. Public interest reflected an enduring fascination with succession, stewardship, and future leadership. The controversy reinforced the importance of precedent, while drawing renewed attention to the monarchy's long-term direction. More importantly, it demonstrated how palace traditions continue shaping modern decisions, even as the institution adapts to changing times. And when the discussions finally reached their conclusion, many observers believed the outcome revealed far more than anyone expected. Because within the House of Windsor, residences may change hands, generations may rise, and headlines may fade, but the responsibility of protecting royal legacy never truly ends. In the days that followed, palace silence only intensified curiosity. No detailed explanation emerged. No official clarification addressed the reports directly. Yet the absence of answers created even more questions. As speculation continued to spread, palace officials reportedly maintained the same disciplined discretion that has defined royal crisis management for generations. There were no dramatic announcements, no public disputes, and no visible attempts to explain the reports circulating through royal circles. Yet that silence only deepened public fascination. Royal commentators debated the controversy from every possible angle. Some viewed it as a routine disagreement over property arrangements. Others believed it exposed something far more significant, an internal struggle involving stewardship, authority, and the future management of royal assets. The fewer answers that emerged, the more determined observers became to uncover what had truly happened behind palace walls. Legal intervention remained one of the most discussed aspects of the story. According to analysts, the involvement of royal lawyers elevated the controversy beyond ordinary family matters and transformed it into a debate about institutional governance. Questions lingered regarding future property arrangements, long-term succession planning, and the responsibilities attached to preserving historic royal estates. Public fascination intensified because Royal Lodge appeared to symbolize something larger than residency rights. It became a symbol of continuity, legacy, and the difficult choices required to protect an institution that must think not only about the present generation, but about those yet to come. Long after the headlines fade, the questions raised by this controversy may continue to resonate, not because of Royal Lodge, not because of residency rights, but because the debate touched a challenge confronting every generation of the monarchy: how to preserve institutional stability while navigating personal ambitions and competing interests. Royal Lodge became a powerful symbol of continuity and stewardship. The reported legal review highlighted the safeguards designed to protect royal assets from short-term pressures, while public interest reflected an enduring fascination with succession, governance, and future leadership. Perhaps that is the deeper lesson many observers took from the controversy. The issue reinforced the importance of precedent, reminding both supporters and critics that royal decisions are rarely evaluated solely in the context of the present moment. They are measured against history and judged according to their impact on the future. The monarchy's relationship with tradition remains one of its defining characteristics, and every debate involving a significant royal property inevitably becomes a discussion about legacy itself. And perhaps that is why the story endured, because it reminded everyone that within the royal family, the most important battles are rarely about the properties themselves, but about the legacy those properties represent. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.